boost, and I am so excited. My background in human resources and also in business and consulting has given me the opportunity to share information with all of you. And what we're going to do is talk about the foundational pieces, whether or not you're building a business or you're building a career. It all comes down to strategy and people. If you don't know where you're going, how do you know who needs to be on your team? So please join me, join in the conversation, catch the show both on the radio, on the app, and also on Facebook. And I will be on Tuesdays from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. Thank you so much for listening. I look forward to seeing you there.
Good morning. It is Tuesday, Talk It Out Tuesday on the Rutledge Perspective. And I am Laurel, your host. Here with Jerry, we're hanging out with our masks on.
Yes, indeed.
And this is so cool. I just love coming in on Tuesdays. So we got some good stuff to talk about today. But first, let's start with our public service announcements. It is Blackout Tuesday 2020. So that means don't spend any money. But if you have to spend any money, spend it on a Black-owned business. Blackout Day 2020. Today, Tuesday. It is also Election Day. So Delaware and New Jersey have primaries today. So if you are in Delaware and New Jersey, get out and vote. Also for Texas, we are still in early voting. Early voting ends July 10th. So hopefully you were registered in time. You can go to a number of polling places in Texas during early voting. On voting day, July 14th, you have to go to your designated polling place. So make sure you know where that is. Make sure, so here's the thing, y'all. Whatever your vote is, make sure that you are educating yourself about who you're voting for. Now, we know in the November election, and maybe in this one too, I haven't looked at the ballot. Normally I look at it before the show, but I haven't looked at the ballot yet. We went away from straight ticket. So in Texas, no longer are you going to have straight ticket. So just know that. So that means you're going to have to really know who you're voting for. There's also been some talk around the fact that nothing will be designated as Democrat or Republican. So if that's the way you vote, just based on party affiliation, you're going to have to really do your research, because there's not going to be anything that's necessarily going to indicate which party somebody's affiliated with. But beyond that, you really need to pay attention to what people are saying. And not just commercials, because commercials can be a lot of propaganda. Although you do need to watch them, especially the ones that they say, I endorse this message, or I approve of this message. You really want to go back and see, especially if someone has a record already, a political record, how did they vote? What did they vote on? What things did they write? What opinions did they write? It's really important for you to educate yourself. And you can go to harrisvotes.com and get sample ballots. You can go to the Secretary of State for the state of Texas and get some sample ballots. Know who's on the ballot, know what we're voting for. So just make sure that you educate yourself before you exercise your vote. It is so important for you to do that. You need to know who you're voting for. So for example, there's a commercial out right now, and again, words matter. So without designating yay or nay, words matter. So there's a commercial out right now for someone who's running for a seat. And in that commercial, in several of the commercials, they talk about China being a criminal state that is manifesting or posing as a sovereign nation. Now that's crazy, conspiracy theory. There is a promise to bring all manufacturing back from China into the U.S. I don't see how that's ever going to happen. I think we could bring more manufacturing back, but to say we're going to bring it all back is, I think, a little lofty. And I love manufacturing, by the way. And then there's the latest one that says we're working on cures for diseases because all lives matter. Now, I'm sure everybody's seen all that rhetoric, and anyone who's talking about all lives matter doesn't get it. They don't get it. They don't get it. They don't get it. So just understand, as Maya Angelou said, people will reveal themselves to you early, believe them the first time. So if that's cool with you, if that's your jam, then vote that way. But pay attention to what people are saying. Pay attention to how they voted. Pay attention to where they're showing up. Just pay attention and then vote your conscience, whatever you believe to be. The other thing to keep in mind as we move towards November is, there's a lot of noise out there. Kanye West has decided he's running for president. We already know what happens when you get somebody in a presidency who doesn't have any experience and has questionable competence. We already know what that does, regardless of party. Regardless of party, if you don't know what you're doing, it's going to be a problem. And don't know how to use the system, or don't even understand the Constitution or how our laws work or any of that, that's a problem. But here's the thing. It's also a distraction. It's a potential split for the vote. And while I had a really good friend of mine tell me one time, Laurel, you got to remember, one party was playing chess and the other was playing checkers. So the party that was playing chess now has put in place about 200 federal judges. Those are lifetime appointments, a number of whom are not even supported by the American Bar Association. In fact, the American Bar Association for a number of those has said they're not qualified to sit. So this is not just about who we're putting in the Oval Office. This is about who's going to replace the notorious RBG. Because Ruth Bader Ginsburg is a boss. But we all know she's not going to last forever. I just needed to last for a little while longer. Just a little while longer to continue to have some balance on the court. So just know that the next vote, November 3rd, is really important beyond just the top of the ticket. Local votes matter, regional votes matter, state votes matter. The amendments that are going to be on there, the propositions that are going to be on there, please, please, please go get a sample ballot. Go look at what's going to be on your ballot. Pay attention to the people that are running so that you really understand who you're voting for. Because your vote matters. Every vote counts. Your vote matters. So please pay attention. So again, early voting in Texas lasts until July 10th. And then the primary is on July 14th. And then today, Delaware and New Jersey, you have primaries. So please go out and exercise your right to vote. Still census. Taxes are coming up due on July 15th, right? The 15th. Then somebody said they extended it again, but I haven't seen that.
I want to know that too.
I haven't seen that.
Have you filed yours already?
No.
Me neither.
I always file early, and this year I just have not been on my game. So somebody who's watching, go to a reputable site and then put it on the KCOH page or on my live Facebook page and say, hey, did they extend it beyond July 15th? And let us know, and we'll say it on the.
Now, I did have a friend who's pretty much in the know. She did say it is July the 15th.
Okay, good.
But yeah,
I didn't think it was extended anymore, but somebody told me that the other day. I was like, oh, I don't know. I will be making sure I'm in by July 15th because that was the official one. Remember that, or not remember that. With unemployment, so those of you who are getting unemployment or whose employees are getting unemployment, remember the unemployment benefits were extended, and at least in Texas, and I think in many states, the requirement, not allergies, I'm sorry. They said mold was high today. That the requirement for you to be actively searching for a job was laid aside during COVID. And so, but Texas Workforce Commission probably 2 weeks ago said, wait, we're getting ready to reinstate the requirement for you to be looking for a job. There was just a posting that they have changed that again with the resurgence in cases and all that stuff in Texas. So, because many more people are going to stay home, they're not going to be hiring, or they're going to postpone some hiring. So, still have the extended employment benefits. You can still do so without having to be actively looking for a position, at least at this time. And that extension of benefits, as well as the expansion of the Family Medical Leave Act, which is called the CARES Act or the Families First Coronavirus Response Act, is extended through the end of the year. So that means that you have covered paid leave for coronavirus-related issues. So just make sure you're paying attention. And as Adrian said last week, as we've said a number of times before, especially business owners and even individuals, just so you can take care of you, there are a few things to follow. Make sure you're following the Department of Labor, both the Federal Department of Labor and then the Department of Labor in your state, to make sure you understand what, if any, changes are happening, DOL.gov. Make sure you're following the CDC, which is cdc.gov. Make sure if you've got a business that you're following OSHA, the Occupational Safety and Health Administration, OSHA.gov. And then make sure you're following the EEOC, EEOC.gov. And you can sign up for newsletters, you can sign up for alerts and those kind of things, but you need to make sure you're paying attention because especially if you're making decisions in your business, if you can use information from these sites to support the decision that you made, just make a copy of it. As Adrian said, print out what's on the website, because it'll have a date, it'll have the website on the bottom of it. Make sure you get that. Print it out and file it so that you have that as support for the decision that you made, so that if someone then has a claim later on that you didn't do something right or you should have been doing something different, you at least have support for why you did it the way you did it in the first place. Okay? So those are all, I think, of the public service announcements for today. So I'm a podcast junkie. I love podcasts. And I hadn't been watching a lot of them lately, but I got a chance to see my mama. So excited.
Awesome.
Got a chance to see my mom. And on that drive there and back, I was listening to some podcasts. And one of my favorite podcasts is Revisionist History, that's done by Malcolm Gladwell. And what he does is he takes things that have happened historically and revisits those things with hindsight and perspective. And what I like about Malcolm Gladwell is very rarely does he come at something with an opinion. Like, I think maybe one podcast I've heard him have an actual opinion about something, as opposed to just bringing information and then having you ask really hard questions and make a decision. So anyway, I was listening to this podcast, and it was a series of 3, and basically called The Tortoise and the Hare. And in this podcast, he and his assistant sat for the LSAT, which is the law school admissions test, because they just wanted to see and they wanted to understand. And as he talks about, he said, he talks about this thing called the tortoise versus the hare. And he says the LSAT and law school in general, and law school admissions, is really built for the hare. So the ability to read a whole lot of information, surface level, consolidate it or process it very quickly, at least enough so you can make a decision, not necessarily so you can understand the details. So if you are a slower person, likes to process, likes to read every word, doesn't like to skim, you are at a disadvantage for the LSAT, because you get 35 minutes for each section. And if you take less time in one section, you don't get to add that to another section. Which, by the way, good morning, Austin. Good morning, Houston. Good morning, Odessa. Thank you for joining. I think we might have the UK still on. The United Kingdom is on. Thank you for being on. And Canada's on. Thank y'all for being here this morning. Oh, St. Louis. Welcome. Glad to have you.
And Chicago.
Y'all stay safe in Chicago now.
Yeah,
So it really favors the people who just process very, very quickly. So the podcast that really hit me and gets into the thing I want to talk about today is, when you look at law schools, they call them the T14. I didn't even know this. The T14, which is the top 14 law schools. And so generally, if you get in one of the top 14 law schools, like theoretically, your career is made. One of those, maybe the top right now, being Harvard. So Harvard, Stanford, I think Columbia, So Malcolm Gladwell was at, I believe it was American University, which is not one of the top 14. And Justice Alito was there. This is before his passing. Justice Alito was there talking to students. And one of the students stood up and she said, I just want to know what I need to do to be able to get like a clerkship. Or how do I really make a great career, was her question. And the underlying message was, if I want to clerk for a Supreme Court justice, how do I do that? The first part of his response said, well, if you're not at Harvard, we don't hire you. Supreme Court justice now. If you're not at Harvard, we don't hire you. Because the assumption is you're at the top of the top of the top if you're at Harvard. But he goes on later on to say the best clerk he ever had was a student that came out of, I believe it was Ohio State. So not top 14. I don't even know if it's top 50. I have no idea. But he said he is the best clerk that he's ever had. And right now, I think the person is actually a federal judge. And Malcolm actually at one point talked to him as well. And here's the thing that came out of that is, yes, in law school and getting the tests and the tests for admissions and all of this kind of stuff, it's who moves the fastest. And Malcolm even sat down with the people who designed the LSAT. And they do a really good job of evaluating the questions on the exam to ensure there's no bias in the questions. They do that. But what they have not done is reevaluate the way the test is given and how the test is structured. Because what history has shown is, especially if you're doing something like clerking for a Supreme Court judge or clerking for someone on the federal bench, those cases can last years, months, years, decades. And so if you're someone who needs things to move really, really quickly, who processes quickly and needs to move on to the next thing, that whole process of clerking at that level is much more geared towards the tortoise. The person who's going to be in depth, the person who's going to pay attention to a lot of detail, the person who's going to be patient enough to be dealing with the same thing for an extended period of time. And so the question he had was, well, so then why isn't there an adjustment to the admission process that takes into account the importance of that particular skill versus just speed? So I give you guys all that background to say, what I wanted to talk about today is this whole idea of what school you went to, what degree you got, all of these things that are still part of the recruitment process that have been proven over and over and over again to not be the deciding factor in success. Over and over and over and over. And yet, we still use those things because they're easy. We still use those things because they're easy. And I remember right before I left my company, my goal was to start doing completely blind recruiting. Completely blind. I didn't want anybody's name on a resume. I didn't want their school on a resume. Because especially now being back in Texas, if you went to Texas A&M or you went to UT, then, everything else you did can be overlooked. Because if you're in a group of people who went to Texas A&M or UT, then there's like this automatic end because of that network. And you may not be even close to being the right fit, but you got the right school on your resume. So if you are a business owner, and even in this midst of COVID, because there are businesses that are still hiring, there are people who may not come back to work, so you're going to have to fill positions. You may be looking at redesigning your organization because you have figured out how you can work remotely. You are still going to be looking for talent and looking for top talent. And so my challenge to you is really redefining what talent looks like. I believe it is KPMG. It's either KPMG or PwC, one of the top consulting firms in Europe, actually decided to stop using grade point as a hiring piece. Because as they went back and looked at all of their hiring over many years, they realized that the people that were most successful were not the people who had the highest grade point averages coming in. And I've always believed, even when I was hiring, if you were working while you were going to school and you had, a high B, a mid B, but you were working and you made it happen, I would take that all day long over someone who wasn't, but had, all A's. And not because the other person wasn't smart or capable, but your ability to multitask, your ability to really make things happen, you've proven that, right? You've proven some tenacity, you've proven some intestinal fortitude. And that's really important, depending on what positions I'm hiring for. So when you start thinking about how you describe talent and who you think is talented, I challenge you to relook at the criteria you are setting. Do you really have to have a 4-year degree to do whatever job you're hiring for? Does it have to be from a top-tier school? Does it have to be a certain grade point average? Because the argument is, over time, those things become absolutely irrelevant. What is happening is there has to be a way, because of the way we've structured our systems, because of the way we've structured the laws, because of the rules around compliance, we have structured the application process such that you have to be really clean about who you decide not to interview and who you decide not to hire. And so if you can have things like a degree, a number of years of experience, a grade point average, a school, whatever, then you are able to eliminate potential candidates just based on that stuff without ever having looked at them any further. And I challenge you to say, are those things that I'm putting as hurdles really relevant to the work that I want somebody to do when they come in my organization? Your answer may be yes, but then I'd keep asking what? 5 whys, root cause. Keep asking why. Why do they have to have that degree? Why do they have to have it from that school? Why does it have to be that grade point average? A case in point. When we first started hiring some engineers, we had a number of engineering openings and engineering openings for internships. And this particular organization mostly hired electrical engineers and chemical engineers. And so as we started looking at people, there were some mechanical that came, there were some nuclear that even came, some structural engineers. And so I started asking the question. They said, no, we can't have that person who is a nuclear engineer. That's just not going to work. And so because I'm like, well, why? Help me understand. And I truly meant that. Help me understand why that doesn't work. Like, was there history? What was that? Well, you have to have, an understanding of chemical engineering or electrical engineering to be successful here. Well, why? Right? I'm really not understanding why. Because if you think about an engineering degree, the first couple of years of an engineering degree, matter of fact, the first couple of years of any degree are pretty standard. It's the same thing. Everybody's taking the same courses. It's only in that last couple of years, and in some cases the last year or even the master's degree, that you actually end up specializing in what kind of, whether you're doing nuclear or structural or civil or chemical or electrical or whatever. But those first couple of years, everybody's doing their basics. Everybody's getting the foundation. So it's really about how you think, how you process, how you problem solve if you're looking at engineers. So we started talking more and more about this. And I finally said, okay, so at this particular time, we were at a chemical plant. And I said, well, so I'm looking at someone who is a nuclear engineer. They also happen to be military. They were in the Navy. And I said, well, they've been on a submarine. And so we're running chemicals, gas and liquid chemicals. They've been on a submarine, which means they've been submerged in water. They've had to run systems and understand flow and pressure and all of those kind of things, which are important to understand in our plant because we also need to understand flow and pressure and mix of chemicals and all that stuff. So tell me again why somebody with a nuclear engineering degree isn't going to work. And they couldn't respond. And we actually ended up hiring this person. They were fantastic. Still there, I believe. Fantastic. But because it wasn't what we normally hire, because our system said you have to have, we were just going to completely negate this person because they didn't fit the mold. Mm-hmm. And yeah, as Leila said, sometimes degrees are a proxy, which are just misleading, right? So the other thing to note is that if you look at how we set things up, it's all about ease and speed, especially when we were at 3% unemployment. Everybody's fighting, they call it the war on talent, right? Or the war for talent. Everybody was fighting for the best. Everybody's fighting to get resources. And so you needed to move fast because good candidates weren't going to wait. They were not going to go through 12 interviews. They weren't going to go be on site and then wait for 3 weeks. And they just weren't going to do that. There was no need to. Right? There was much more demand. And so processes and procedures and systems and algorithms got put in place with or without artificial intelligence to weed out candidates. Exactly, Leila, to automatically weed out people. Because that way hiring managers don't have to think. They don't have to look at them. They don't get 400 resumes. Or more importantly, the recruiters who've been charged with filling positions fast don't have to look at 300 resumes. They can just look at the top 10. And this just put a disposition on the others that said they didn't meet the criteria. But if you listen to what I just said a minute ago, what are we losing, and why are the criteria that we've set critical to the success of the person that we're hiring? Why are they? Or even are they?
Is it because times have changed? So back in the day, if you think about it, mm-hmm. all of that may have been necessary, mm-hmm. but because of the world of the internet, and people, let's say a mechanic, you become a mechanic just going right. by the internet.
Right.
People are making ponds and learning how to do that because I heard a guy says, the yard business, the landscaping mm-hmm. business slowed down. So they went on the internet to find out how to create ponds, to make
right.
harmless ponds.
Right.
And now they're getting top dollar
right.
to do that. So
right.
could that be it?
So
the things have become obsolete because of the change?
There are some things that have become obsolete or have just really slowed down. Mm-hmm. But I think the difference is, it's all, if you look at how we've changed as a nation, right? So very much the Industrial Revolution happened. We had all of this manufacturing, all this stuff happened. It was very blue collar. That's how the nation was built. But then as people got more money and got more comfortable and were able to build their families and start to build wealth, generations said, I want my kids to do, quote unquote, better than me. And they defined better than me as don't do blue collar. You need to do white collar. You need to go to college. You need to, all of these things, right? Because there was somehow something bad or less than associated with blue collar or hand, working with your hands. And so what has happened, the law of unintended consequences is now it's hard to find people in manufacturing. It's hard to find plumbers and welders and all of these things that are quote unquote manual labor or trades. And what that means is, one, it's scarcity, so it also drives up the cost of that, right? Because there aren't as many people who are doing plumbing, etc. And you do need expertise. And of course, you want somebody who really knows what they're doing, wiring your house. Now, come on, and putting in your plumbing and your sprinkler system so you don't have sewage coming in your house. So you need people who are trained. But what has happened over time is that we all started saying that the only way you really make wealth and the only way you really move up in this world is so you get a college degree and then your life is made. And that's not necessarily the case. And I think what we're starting to see is a movement that says, one way, especially in underserved populations and underrepresented communities, really the way you build that generational wealth is to have your own thing, to build your own business, to educate yourself and be able to utilize your skill to do something specifically for you, building your community, building your family. And by the way, you can make an exceptional living and build generational wealth without a college degree. I'm telling you, those folks working in the plant that we had, I saw more dualies and people had more deer leases and all this kind of stuff. And they're working in the plant. They don't have a degree, right? Working hourly. So we've got to change our mindset that a degree at a particular school automatically means better talent, because that's simply not the case. Sometimes people make a choice. College is just not for everyone. 4 years is not for everyone. Advanced degrees is not for everyone. I personally want to get my PhD, but that's just because I want it, because I wanted people to call me Dr. Rutledge.
We do.
Right?
Yeah.
So, and I love to learn. So that's a big thing for me. But I also realized that even having gotten my MBA, getting my MBA did not make me smarter. It doesn't make you smarter. It doesn't make you better. What it does is give you additional exposure. That's what it does. I got to meet people and see people and hear ideas and argue about ideas in a way that I wouldn't have at a different level.
Do you get paid more?
It depends, because that's the other piece. People, the good thing about organizations when they talk about, they bring all these people in, they have tuition reimbursement, which is awesome. But if you expect to start at a job, have them pay for your degree, and then once you get your degree, automatically get a promotion or a raise, that's not going to happen. Because see, they know you already. And just because you got the degree doesn't mean for them, you are now more valuable necessarily. So you may have to leave and go do something else to get additional pay for the degree you just earned. And it's just like if you look over time and talking about what happens with, especially with African American women trying to move up the corporate ladder, it is not a source issue. There are plenty of highly qualified African American women. It's a pipeline issue. And the reason I say it's a pipeline issue is at some point, many, many, many African American women just decide to move on. They're tired of fighting the battle. So you just as soon move somewhere else and take that promotion by moving, and then continue to move by changing jobs, changing companies. But that also can make your trajectory a little flatter as opposed to a little exponentially straight up. So, when you're thinking about the best talent for your organization and who should be coming in, who should be working for you, how they should work for you, who's going to be the best talent, who's going to be the people that really take you forward. Remember, we talked about strategy. Where are you going? How are you going to get there? And who are the people that you need? What are the skills that you need to fulfill the strategy? Broaden your perspective. Broaden your perspective. Do you even need an engineer to do that particular role? We're taking engineers to go into sales and marketing in technical organizations. If you have a degree in accounting, can you go do something else because you have an ability to be really creative and innovative? But you know the numbers, which gives you an opportunity to think like a business person. I mean, my undergrad is accounting and I wound up in HR. But it gave me a foundation upon which to have conversations with business people because I understand how businesses work. So if you go back to, what Justice Alito said, oh no, we only hire clerks from Harvard, but my best clerk was at Ohio State. What does that tell you about what we should be doing? We should be looking at the talent, the skills, the dispositions that people bring to the organization through our recruitment and through our interviewing processes, which is really about asking people to walk you through what they have done. What are the experiences that they have had? What projects have they done? What projects have they done? What was their position on a particular project? What did they learn from it? What would they do differently? How would they design it? Asking very, very deep questions about skills and behavior that aren't just around tell me your resume and walk me through your resume. And it's not just behavioral interviewing. It really is a combination of curious questioning. I want to know how you, the individual, not only fit in my culture, but how your skills fit what my business is trying to do and where my strategy is. That's what I'm looking for. Now, on the flip side of that, as an individual, I don't want you to take anything I said as telling you should or should not get a degree, or you should or should not aspire to be at one of the top 10 law schools or top 10 business schools, none of that. If that's your desire, I say go for it. Do what you need to do to make that happen. Because there's still a very big population that name matters. Where you went matters, and the networks are real. The connections you make are real. And so there is value in that if you decide, you know what, no matter what happens, I'm going to go to Wharton. And I think Wharton actually the dean of the Wharton Business School, I think, is an African-American woman for the first time. I think it's Wharton. Somebody look that up for me, which is awesome. So please, if you're an individual and that is something that is your heart's desire, then do that. But don't let that decision alone be the thing that you stand on when you are trying to find your next position or trying to get your next promotion.
Annette Phillips out of Brooklyn, New York says, blessings to the people over 55 years old, the age, trying to find a new job.
Yes. And good morning, Brooklyn. Yes, it is difficult, but here's the other thing that I think organizations are beginning to recognize and acknowledge. And it's taken a while, and I won't say it's ingrained or that it's perfect. But there is still value in experience. So for the longest time, because there was such a big gap between those with experience and those coming in new, the big generational gaps, there was this big push to say, how do we make this comfortable for early career people? How do we make this comfortable for millennials, just because that's easy, Gen Zers now? How do we make this easy? How do we make this a place that they're comfortable? How do we make them feel attached and feel loved and feel valued and all that kind of stuff, because their perspective is different than that 55 plus person. And let's not even talk about 60 plus, who's used to a pension and staying there for a whole career. If you're 55 plus, the same applies to you. Instead of focusing on, hey, I'm 55 and I've got battle scars and I've got experience, and that's true, you really need to be heavy around, here is what I've done. Here are the outcomes of what I've done. Here's the revenue that I've generated. Here's the cost savings that I've generated. Here's the people that I've developed. You need to be really, really clean and focused and heavy on what you have done and be able to prove and have social proof about that. Because at the end of the day, especially when we come out of this thing, whenever we come out of it, and people start rehiring and moving and realigning their organization, there is going to be a need for people who can hit the ground running. And while there are people that are early career who are extremely bright, and they may be able to move through a process much faster, not because they're brighter than people who are 55 plus, but because they have a greater access to information, and they have had. With Google and the internet and Wikipedia and all that kind of stuff, there's a lot of things you can get that are technologically advanced, where those of us who are, not millennials or Gen Zers, we had to just figure it out. Hell, I remember going to the library and looking through the card catalog to find something, right? So now if you are 55 plus and you are looking, it's not about begging. It's not about begging. It is about being really confident about what you know, why you know it, and the proof that you have done it before. And that's where you need to stand. Now, I'm not saying that that's going to work 100% because you still, again, are fighting algorithms and systems. You're still fighting, recruiters that are just trying to put butts in the seat. You're going to really have to work your network if you're 55 plus. You've really got to work your network. And you've got to be really clear on your skills and what you bring to the table that other people don't, not because they're not as smart, but because they simply don't have the same battle scars you do. I think I've talked about it on the show before, in the area of safety. Most places are really, running to zero. You want to have 0 incidents for safety because you want everybody to go home safe, especially if you're working in a hazardous industry. And that's admirable, and everybody wants that. Nobody wants to get hurt at work. But here's the other side of that coin. If you never have safety incidents, that means you begin to have a population of employees over years who have never had to respond to a crisis. And while you may have procedures written down, you may have drills that you do, you may have all of those kind of things, if you have never actually experienced it, then your ability to really respond with calm and with assurance is just limited because you've not seen it before. So we've got to think about these absolutes always have a downside. So having 0 safety incidents while everybody goes home safe, that's fantastic. That means the very first one you have 10 years later could be absolutely disastrous because no one knows what to do. Even though you've done drills, you've got a higher probability of panic. So Leila just said it's Dr. Erica James. Yes, she's the dean of the Wharton Business School. It's one of the top business schools in the country at Penn. First black woman. Go Dr. Erica. So 55 and older, please, 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 let me not say don't because it's easy to do this because we got to own the emotions as well. Try not to sit in overwhelm. Try not to be discouraged. Be strategic. What organizations do you want to work for? What do their cultures look like? Who else is in that organization? Go on LinkedIn. Look and see who the employees are that work there. What does that demographic look like in the organization you want to be in? And then really sit in strength and in confidence in what you know and what you've done. Because no one is you. And no one's done what you've done the way you've done it.
Absolutely. I see a highly favored Carrie says, everybody needs a sitter. And she says so many people want older, experienced people to keep their children and teach their children. But wouldn't you want to have something similar to what you've done? Let's say I've never kept kids before.
That's interesting. If you're looking for somebody who wants a sitter, my bigger concern with somebody who had never kept kids before is, one, if you've never kept kids before and I don't know you, I don't know. Because I don't know. That's more about somebody who has the true ability and capability to deal with children. Like that's not me. So I'm nobody wants me sitting their kids.
They're going to have to I said something the other day on Facebook about no need to reinvent the wheel. You just roll a little differently. Right. Because I do productions, but instead of doing them in a venue, I'll take them to a drive-in. Right. So you kind of want something similar to what you're gifted in because you've got a record. And that's another thing you said that is important because back in the day, you could do a resume. You kind of fluff that resume and write about that resume. Right. But in this day and time, everything is digital that we can look it up and see, and there needs to be some type of proof.
People are asking. Yeah. And they're asking in ways, and really good interviews, viewers know how to ask you questions to really find out if you've done what you said you've done. So don't just think that first question they ask you is the only question they're going to ask you, because I know for me, I'm listening to the answers that you're saying, and I may come back and ask you another question about a different topic, but it's going to reveal to me if what you said in the very beginning was true. Because this ain't my first rodeo either. So those of us who've been in this space know how to dig out the truth, and know how to uncover weaknesses. And it's always in your best interest to just be honest. You know what? I have not done that exact thing, but here are the other 4 things that I have done that are related to that I was extremely successful, and here's how they relate. Because again, a lot of people are going to be lazy, so you're going to have to do the work for them. Here's what I've done, and here's how it matches. Here's how my skills transfer to what you're looking for. You're going to have to do the work. And not because, and some of them are lazy. Some of them just simply don't have the time because, again, they have the pressure to just fill the job.
Right.
Give me some resumes, give me some resumes, give me some resumes. And then they have a hiring manager that sits on them for 3 weeks, right? And then the hiring manager's mad because all those people are gone. So just know that it's not always bad intent. It's not always bad intent. Sometimes it is just workload. And sometimes it's just pressure. But you have the power to sell you. Use your network. Build your network. Make sure you know who's in your network. If it's somebody you absolutely don't know, you don't want to go to the first thing and say, hey, we don't know each other, but I see you work here and I applied for this job. Can you get me in? Who are you?
Yeah.
Who are you? So if you go back and listen to an interview that I did with Sharon Smith Akinsanya, she runs the People of Color Career Fair in Minnesota. And she talks a lot about networking. She has 5 times a week, so every day, she does coffee meetings with people. Now she does them virtually. And she just meets people, right? She gets to know them, and she nurtures those relationships. So it's not just about one meeting and then, oh yeah, that was great, and then you keep it moving. Those kind of networking relationships have to be reciprocal. What can I do for you? Not just what you can do for me.
Now that's good, because I talked about it earlier today, because at some point you don't owe anybody anything. Nobody owes you an opportunity.
Right.
And you've got to put your best foot forward.
Exactly.
And a lot of things and jobs and favors are gotten by referral. So what does it take to be a person that's referable?
Right, exactly. You got to think about that. So, sometimes being referable is you got to be a person of your word. So if you're not a person of your word and people see that, they're not going to refer you. The other thing is being really clear on your capabilities and being true to who you are. Because there are people that I love. There are people that I know, they are, ride or die. And I would a bit more recommend them for some of these positions than I would cut off my left arm. And I love them, but I know them. And very few people, and I won't say no one because, absolutes, very few people are going to recommend someone that they know is not going to be a fit. Because at the end of the day, they're putting their reputation on the line. So the next time they want to refer someone, or the next time they themselves need something in that circle, they have now taken a blow to their trustworthiness and their reputation. So just know you got to be honest with you. And if you're shady, don't expect people to be putting you out there and putting their name on the line for you. And you just got to know you.
It's like a singer, and people say, well, my mom said I can sing, my church said I can sing, and I hear like, they lie, that's a hot mess. Because maybe your level of excellence is good for your circle.
Yes.
But if you haven't broadened your circle and then you put something out there and they have to correct you, you can't get mad and think everybody's hating on you.
Right. And your feelings
it just
are
was
hurt.
good for your circle.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and one of the hardest things for us to do is to be honest with ourselves.
Yeah.
If you love to sing, but you don't have a great voice, you hear that. You hear that. Just own it. It's okay. It's okay. I love to sing. I do not have a great voice. My voice is okay. I have a great ear, but ear is different than voice. So I can be listening to someone else and be like, ooh, that's not right. Right? That's not right. That's not right. What do they say? Those who can't do teach, right? So yeah, I can tell you when it's off, but I can't necessarily demonstrate to you how to make it on.
I've said it. I don't know music, but I know this is not it.
Right? I know this is not right.
The comment says, this crisis is pushing us all out of our comfort zones. We should be building relationships and preparing.
Yes.
And here's the deal. When you just said that, I had to come to a place where I said, you know what? I have to use my own relationships for me. I've used them for others.
Yes.
But now I have to use my own relationship. And what I'm finding many people do is they burn bridges.
Yes.
and you don't know how valuable, let's say just if you and I ever part.
Right.
When you have a good day, you have a good day.
Right.
But who knows down the line, is there something, we may not need it now.
Exactly.
There's something I need from you later, but
Right.
yet because we dispersed and just got mad at one another,
Right.
I can't get what I need and you can't get what you
Exactly.
need. So when she said that, because of a lot of things that we get done, even with Fox 26 News coming here the other day, somebody that knew somebody that knew me that knew somebody
Right.
said to come here.
Right.
And the lady
Right.
had to search me down to find out where I was. But it's
Exactly.
anything good that I ever got came from a relationship.
Exactly.
Wow.
Exactly. And the reality is, they say never burn a bridge.
Yeah.
Now, there are some bridges that need to be burned. You just need to make sure that you don't ever have to cross that bridge again.
That's the word.
If you think there's even a remote possibility that you might have to go over that bridge again, you might need to just suck it up and keep it moving. Right? Because I can tell you, I know in my history, there have been a couple of bridges that went up in flames. I mean, smoke signals, 5-alarm fire. And I have not had to cross those again and don't intend to. And that's maybe one or two of those. I mean, there's not a lot. Because the other thing is, it takes a lot of energy to burn a bridge, as opposed to just moving on. Just move on. Just move on. It's too much energy.
Yeah.
It's too much energy. But use this time to build those relationships. Use this time to enhance and strengthen your network. Authentically. Authentically.
Now, how does that work? Let me say this comment. Annette
Okay.
said from New York says some people are type A personalities.
Yes.
So, and then I want to go back to the question to answer that, but I want to go back to when you said authentically. How do you build relationships authentically?
I mean, you just need to know, when I say build them authentically, you need to show up in the relationship as who you are. Now, there's a difference between transparency and authenticity. Being authentic is being who you are, showing up who you are, how you are, the words that you normally use, how you dress, how you act. You got to be who you are. Transparency is when you completely, open the rails, everybody sees the backstory. Everybody doesn't need to know everything about your business, because most of these networks and most of these relationships are professional relationships, right? At least they start out that way. So you still need to be authentically you. I show up as me all the time.
You do.
I am going to be, sorry y'all, ant.
Oh.
I'm going to be me all the time. I am fairly patient until I'm not. I am really honest about what I know and what I don't know. If it's an opinion, I'll say it's an opinion. I've just always been that way, right? You can ask me anything. If I don't know, I'll tell you I don't know, and I'll find out. If I can't tell you, I'll tell you I can't tell you, right? It's just easier for me. Why lie? Because then you got to keep up with the lie, and I don't have that kind of time. And there's a lot about me that only those that are closest to me know, because it's not relevant to how I show up as a professional. But you'll also see from a visibility perspective, I am doing more pictures, I'm showing up more. That is highly unusual for me. It's still authentic, it's still me. But it's highly unusual because that stuff is personal for me. Until I had my business, I didn't even have a picture on LinkedIn. Wasn't on Twitter. Facebook was just private. Because I'm just not trying to put all my business out in the street. But when you're talking about building a network, building a business, building relationships, people need to know who you are. They need to know how to get to your website. They need to know what kind of things you post. They need to know your perspective. Because again, if you're not making people either uncomfortable or really excited, you're just somewhere in the middle and everybody forgets you. So be you, have a perspective, have an opinion. Some people are going to like it, some people are going to hate it, but at least they're thinking about it. But you do not have to reveal every single thing about you, blood type, weight, height. I live here. That's not relevant, right, to your business. Unless that's your brand, then okay. And there are a lot of people whose lives are completely open books in social media, who are professional brands. That's not the way I roll. So when you begin to build these relationships, understand the difference between authenticity and transparency. Because you can be authentic without being 100% transparent with every single thing that happens in your world. And then you said there was another question.
Well, when you said about being authentic, because I can really tell when somebody's not being authentic. I can tell when people are trying to do the most, because I'm a minister is just overly doing the most. And if you know me, you know that I'm not that deep.
Right.
And when you said,
I'm on
doing that with me.
Right.
So when you said that rings a bell, because when I met you, you were just you. You were authentic. You have not changed since I met you. And that's what happens with a lot of relationships or businesses, because then the real person comes out, and now you're trying to see how you're going to sever this relationship or, stop it.
What I have found is it's really important to listen. When you're meeting people, when you're building networks, you got to listen. You got to really pay attention, because a lot of times it's very surface, right? Hey, how you doing? It's nice to meet you. Here's who I know. Here's what I don't know. That's great. I always pay really, really close attention. What are you saying? What words are you using? Language. What are your eyes telling me? You can see a lot in people's eyes, right? I watch and listen very, very intently. I listen actively. I've always been that way. Because people will reveal themselves to you early. Believe them the first time.
You're absolutely right. But we do ignore it.
We ignore it.
When you said that, I had somebody, a young lady, she did something for me, some work for me, and she brought me the finished product of the work, and she said, I want to take a video, I want to go live and see your facial expression. I said, no, you don't want to do that. And she said, no, I really want to see how you're going to be.
Yeah.
And I said, I'm going to be honest.
Yeah.
That's not going to be genuine.
Right.
And there's a possibility I'm not going to like it, and you're not going to want that live.
Right.
So she recorded it, but I didn't. And so I'm saying, aren't you glad we didn't go live?
Right, right.
And so you have to be honest with people up
You
front.
do. You do.
Yeah.
You do.
That's good.
You got to know you.
You got to know you.
You've got to know you. And we've talked about that on the show before. You may be able to lie to a lot of folks, but you can't lie to you.
Yes, good.
And so just own whatever it is, just own it. I know me. I know what my issues are. And I got them.
What are they?
I got them. I got them. And some of them reveal themselves to people who love me. And some of them I just try to keep hidden until, necessary. And one of those things for me is, again, I am patient until I'm not. I can be in it to win it, but when I'm done, I'm done. And I mean really done. Like, you no longer exist to me, done. And that doesn't mean I'm mad, none of that stuff. It just means I'm through with that now. Because see, I tried, and we talked about it, and we had conversations, and we were on the same page, but you still nutted up, so I'm done.
Now, see?
And it's hard to get back once I'm done.
Somebody would say that's not long suffering, that's not being patient.
That is absolutely correct. Like I said, I got issues, and I know them. And it takes me a while. It takes me a while to get there.
World, or is that
Absolutely, it takes a while to get there.
Okay.
I tend to be more patient in business than I am personally. I tend to be more patient in business than I am personally, because you have to be in business, right? You have to be, and that does not mean that I allow people to just run over me. But I tend to be more patient because I try to make sure I understand people's perspective. That's why it's called the Rutledge perspective. Everybody's got a different perspective. I try to make sure that I'm paying attention to this perspective that people have, because it's really important to understand that. And so but even then, it's still business. It's still business. And you have to continue to have a certain standard for how you are going to operate that is consistent and is authentic.
Say that again, because is that the same as a brand? Because let's say
Yes,
you get a newcomer.
in some ways, yeah.
And you have to protect that
Yes.
at all costs.
Absolutely.
I had a conversation one day, and I said, this may be excellent to you, but this is not. And if you
On
followed
brand.
me, that maybe given time, you would have saw what I liked.
Right.
And so you brought me something different
Right.
that I didn't like. Well, I wanted to surprise you.
Yeah.
Well, no, you don't surprise the person when they spend money.
Yeah.
That's not a surprise. That's
Right.
theft.
Right.
So how do you make sure that you're keeping that together as it relates to business, as far as your brand is concerned?
A lot of it is, and you're seeing it now, there are a lot of statements that are coming out now about what brands stand for.
Okay.
But the reality is, actions speak louder than words. So if you allow people to not pay you, if you allow people to just show up and treat you any kind of way, if you yourself are saying, yeah, we are here to serve, and you're never on time for your business, or people try to show up and your doors are locked or you close early, it's inauthentic. Because people watch your actions more so than your words. And so if your actions tell people you're not about business, you're unreliable, you're not trustworthy, you're not quality, that's what they're going to believe, because that's the experience that they've had. So your words should align with your actions, and know that your actions will be what form people's opinions. Your words may give them their first taste, but people are going to watch what you do and see if it aligns with what you say. They're going to watch what you do and see if it aligns with what you say.
And it's not just going to affect that one person, because they're going to go back and tell potential clients.
Absolutely. Right now with the Blackout effort, I'm on this group that, on several groups, Black-owned restaurants here in Houston and Dallas, Fort Worth area. And people have been coming on because, and complaining. I went to so-and-so place, they ran out. I went to so-and-so and they ran, just really, And several people have gotten on and said, look, there's a few things about this. Number one, we have now been overwhelming some of these businesses with our business. So just like any other small business, they weren't necessarily prepared to handle the volume we all of a sudden threw on them. So have a little patience. The other thing is to remember, they aren't necessarily getting the same breaks as the big chains are on their prices. So their prices are going to be a little bit higher, most likely, because they're not able to buy in bulk in the same way. And you don't complain about the other big one, so why are you complaining about this little one? So it's really about understanding when it really is an indication of how people truly are and their behavior and how they act versus a situational response. I showed up and the wait was 2 hours. Oh, well, it's blackout week and now everybody's showing up. It's going to be a long wait. I just need to be ready. Or I need to come back another time, or I need to call my order in, right? So really, when you start thinking about who we're choosing, who we are, what talent looks like, really expand your definition to understand, who am I really looking for? Who am I really looking for and why? And then when you're trying to be that person, especially if you're 55 plus, stand in your power about what you know and what you've experienced and what you've done. And translate that into the job or the position or the company that you're looking to join. And use that as well to build those networks, to build those relationships authentically. And not just about what they can do for you, but what can you do for them? Because there's always something you can do for somebody else, even if it's just a word of kindness. Or, hey, I really am looking at your company. I'd love to get some information. Please feel free to look at my network as well. I'm more than happy to do a virtual introduction to someone you're trying to get to. Reciprocity. How are you giving back? Those to whom much is given, much is expected.
Yeah, people want to know the ROI. They want to know the return on their investment in anything that they do. Right. Because gone are the days of just, a handshake or whatever. Right. People want to see, like you said, proof that you can do it in production along with it. And because we are in this pandemic situation, people have spent a lot of time at home sharpening their skills. Yes. I said the other day, I gave Sharon and a guy named Will that does my production work a shout out, and I said I don't switch horses in the middle of the stream. Right. Unless that horse stops riding. Right. Exactly. Right. If so when you're doing what you do and you keep up, you will be referred and you will be used.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. And it's just important to just stay authentic. To stay encouraged. I mean, these are tough times. I mean, we're looking at, now they're supposed to be playing, and I'm going to say it the way it really is said. They're going to be playing the Negro National Anthem before they play the National Anthem at NFL games.
What are your thoughts?
I'm just like, just no.
No.
Just no.
Thank you. I thought I was being...
Just no.
Why not?
What's the point? Why? I want to see changed behavior. That don't do nothing for me.
That's what I'm saying.
I don't understand. I want to see changed behavior. That's what I want to see.
It's almost like a mockery, like a joke.
That's what I took it as. I'm like, we should be so thankful that they threw us this little bone. I can't with that. I want to see changed behavior. I want to see more minority owners. I want to see more minority coaches. I want to see more women coaches on the sidelines. Show me that.
Yeah.
Because I don't care if you're playing a special anthem if I don't see that. Because nothing has changed in the system. The system has to change.
Laura, and then Jacqueline Provost says, we need to be patient with others and then put ourselves in their shoes, which is
absolutely,
because we know how it all started.
Absolutely.
But when you say that, the country is saying we have no leadership. We need leadership. How important is genuine leadership?
I think we need to look no further than what is happening in our country around COVID response to see the impact of poor leadership.
Yeah.
Full stop. Leadership is critical.
Can
in any endeavor.
Everybody be a leader though?
No, I do not think everyone has the capability to lead. I do not believe everyone has the capability to lead. Because a lot of people don't want to lead, because leadership takes courage. It also takes humility. And it takes an ability to set aside ego. And not everybody can do that. Because leadership is not about you. It's about the people you're leading.
That's good.
So no, leadership in a crisis is critical. Not everyone can lead, and not everyone should be leading. We see that in companies all the time. Not everybody's in a leadership role should be. In fact, many of them should not be.
And it's because of experience or the college
Some of
degree?
it's just disposition.
Yeah.
Some of it is connections. Some of it is network. Some of it is the system just pushing people up. Some of it's that old school, well, it's my turn, so I get to lead. And some of it's a lack of courage of other leaders to say, yeah, no, you're just not the right leader. And if that means you decide to leave the organization, okay, we wish you much success somewhere else.
Good.
But fear keeps us from doing the right thing sometimes.
That's what we're seeing right now, because I see a lot of people have an opportunity and they're in positions to speak up and to tell the truth.
And they don't. They don't. Speaking truth to power takes courage and a willingness to put yourself on the line. So, 11 o'clock. Y'all, I always have so much fun, and then it's like time to go, and I'm not ready to go. But I gotta go. Right? You ain't got to go home, but you gotta get out of here. Thank y'all so much for watching again. Carlsbad, California. Some more folks from Odessa. I really appreciate it. We had Chicago, we had Brooklyn, we had St. Louis, we had the UK, we had Canada. So I really, really appreciate it. I am just so humbled and so honored that you guys decided to take an hour to spend some time with me. I appreciate it. And we will see you next Tuesday. Go vote. Delaware, New Jersey, go vote. Texas, go early vote. It's time. July 14th is the primary.
Can I ask a quick question? It
Yeah.
may sound dumb, but I want to ask. Has there ever been a time where there was no election, that something happened when we just didn't have an election, or it was postponed for any reason?
You know what, Jerry? I don't know the answer to that. I know there are some ways where elections can be postponed, just like the primaries. There are ways the elections can be postponed. And I believe there are measures that can be put in place for that. Those do exist. I don't know that they've ever been done. Even during the 2 world wars, I don't know that they've ever been done.
I'm not saying I know this for sure, but I'm like, what would happen if that happens?
Well,
Because
I think people are prepping just in case, because...
And can Kanye actually run, or is it too late for him to run? Because people are confused.
But here's the thing. Even if it's too late for him to be on the ballot, people could do a write-in. Y'all, please don't be fooled. That's just a whole lot of drama. Don't get distracted. Don't get distracted. Again, we know what it's like to have folks who don't know what they're doing in positions of leadership. Corporate, political, all of that. We know what that looks like. Don't get fooled. Don't be fooled. Don't be fooled. This is just a distraction. Just a distraction. Don't do it. Don't do it. This is about the Supreme Courts. This is about the federal judgeships. Don't do it. Don't do it. All right, y'all. Peace, love, and happiness.
All right, Facebook.